The reality is many organizations have hired sustainability functions or sustainability reporting functions. Those resources may need to be pivoted to other activities. And for companies that were on their journey to identifying material sustainability risks and opportunities, this is an opportunity to say, okay, how are we going to react to these from a strategic perspective?
Joining me today is Lauren Pesa, partner and U.S. real estate sustainability leader with Deloitte. Lauren, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Now, can you speak to some of the regulatory changes that we've seen over the last 12 to 18 months on sustainability disclosure regulations?
I expect many of Nareit's members are certainly aware of the changes coming out of the Securities and Exchange Commission on their final climate rule that they had issued, just over a year ago. But back in March, they actually initiated a delay, and then fast forward to the new administration that, to put it lightly, would indicate that the climate rule is not a priority for them. But in addition to the changes coming out of the SEC, we also see some changes coming out of the European Union. It's proposed right now, it's called the Omnibus Bill. The Corporate Sustainability Reporting Directive was by far the biggest sort of sustainability reporting mandate that was going to require companies, or is going to require companies, to disclose many sustainability risks and opportunities that they have present within their organizations, and that could be beyond climate, so water, pollution, waste, information about social characteristics of the organization, both focused from a financial materiality lens, but also an impact materiality lens. And what we've seen in this omnibus proposal in the last couple weeks is that they're actually proposing a delay that, so let's say, for instance, and many of your REIT members are U.S. headquartered companies that had operations or have operations in the European Union, and met some fairly low thresholds to meet the scoping requirements to be sort of within the requirements of the CSRD. The proposal aims to raise those requirements. In particular for REITs, one of those thresholds is 1,000 employees, and certainly REITs are not a monolith. There's many organizations that are REITs that have more than 1,000 employees, but there are many that don't. So we would expect, many companies may come out of the certain aspects of the scope of the CSRD. And in addition to that, we will see, and this is just proposed right now, and they haven't actually articulated exactly what's going to happen, but there's also been a proposal for some simplification of the underlying disclosure requirements of the CSRD. Now, this is all to say that this is a lot for REITs to sort of keep up with. Like, there's just so much change, and the volume and the scale of change in a very, very fast-moving environment is just a lot to keep your finger sort of on the pulse of. So like I said, we have SEC, we have the CSRD out of the European Union, and now we also have states acting, right? So we have California, we have Illinois, we have New York that are issuing their own sort of sustainability reporting regulations. And so this fractured environment really does make it complex for companies to sort of monitor and react to their requirements and really think about them in this sort of interoperable way. How do we make sure that we're satisfying a litany of different regulators while figuring out, okay, what do we pause, what do we prioritize, and that really is the mandate right now for REITs.
And how are all of these changes and proposed changes impacting REITs?
It's an opportunity to take a step back and say, okay, what are sort of my actions that are going to advance the ball as well as result in value creation for the organization? Listen, real estate is exposed to sustainability risks and creates sort of sustainability risks. So two sides of the coin on greenhouse gas emissions, for instance, 39% of carbon emissions globally come from the built environment and real estate. In addition to that, so that obviously creates an impact on the environment, but because of that, real estate sort of has a target on its back in terms of if you're going to mandate emissions reductions, certainly is a sector that that has a high level of visibility in this area. And so we see building performance standards, Local Law 97 being the big one that many folks in the US certainly are aware of, out of New York City, that will require decreasing emissions limits over time for building performance. And if companies don't, or real estate owners don't sort of react to those mandates, there will be fines and penalties associated with those. And so, like I said, companies have really this opportunity to take a step back and say, okay, what really matters from a financial materiality perspective? What could have an impact on cash flows? What could have an impact on long-term value creation? So that's just one example of greenhouse gas emissions. But listen, climate events are certainly still taking place, and we see that coalesce in the property insurance situation. And that is a potentially a risk that certainly needs to be evaluated by real estate owners as a transition risk to on a climate-related basis, and really being able to monitor and think about the future cash flows that could drive changes in returns over time.
And amid all this change that you're talking about, what are some leading practices that boards can take in their role on overseeing a company's sustainability strategy and initiatives?
Yeah, so right now I think there's at least an initial reaction to go sort of pencils down to the extent that these regulations either seem to come out of scope or at least give people some breathing room. But my view on this is that there is an opportunity to sort of, take a breath, right? But the reality is many organizations have hired sustainability functions or sustainability reporting functions. Those resources may need to be pivoted to other activities. And for companies that were on their journey to identifying material sustainability risks and opportunities, this is an opportunity to say, okay, how are we going to react to these from a strategic perspective? So many of the disclosure regulations don't actually have any sort of behavior mandate. Like, you're not required to reduce your greenhouse gas emissions under certain of these disclosure regulations, but they're at least at one point required to disclose them. So for companies that were well on the journey to sort of identifying, what are their emissions impact, this is an opportunity to take a step back and say, okay, where is my portfolio? Let's say I know all my emissions in particular states. Where are building performance standards, for example, either final or proposed? And what does that mean for my future cash flows if I can't meet the goals and targets that are in there? So I would emphasize to boards to take a step back and say, what can we do now that would again drive that return?